now. If you wait till right before the storm, it's too late. And so with that, I'd like to thank you for listening to me, and I'd like to turn it over to Alex Tardy with the Weather Service so that he can talk a little bit about what we're expecting this winter. So thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Jason. A lot of great information. We work very closely with Jason and with the Emergency Management Department. My name is Alex Tardy. I'm a meteorologist with National Weather Service. I'm in charge of the warning program, and we're going to talk about the warning program specifically and the type of messaging that you will hear during the upcoming winter. Hopefully not often, but you need to be familiar with the terms, especially watches, warnings, and the products that we issue from the National Weather Service. So our job is to monitor the weather. Basically 24/7 we're monitoring the weather, 365. And we are able to monitor the weather using various tools, satellite, radar, computer models. The bottom line is we provide information directly to flood control and directly to emergency management to help them decide on evacuation notices. So the information we are feeding to them starts sometimes a week to 10 days before, and then goes all the way up to when it's raining or even after it's rained. I have a short presentation that I'll provide everyone the details on what I'm talking about, and there's really some main takeaway points here that I want you to focus on is watches and warnings and understanding what those are. And then the other thing is understanding the weather and paying attention to the weather way before you learn about an evacuation warning or an order. Our office has a program we call Turn Around, Don't Drown. I want to highlight that because it's an educational safety program. It's to remind everyone, when you see flowing water across a creek, no matter how deep it looks, it's not worth the risk. One of the number one causes, other than heat in the United States, is flood-related fatalities, and most of those are cases where vehicles are trying to cross running water. Either the road is washed out, or the water's deeper or moving faster than expected. Jason showed some great videos, so I'm not going to show the video, but I want you to keep in mind with mudslides, debris flows, think of like a beaver dam. Once it starts happening, it can be very unpredictable, very unpredictable. It can come down fast, like Jason described and showed, and can also come down slow, get clogged, buckle up, spill over, and then break loose suddenly. So this can happen while it's raining and even in areas where it's hardly raining at all, downstream. Big fires we've had this year, and Jason showed really clearly that these fires burned hot. And that's important when you see the maps that I show next. But the fires burned hot, they burned hard, and they burned on very steep, rugged terrain in the San Bernardino Mountains and also San Jacinto Mountains. So we work with United States Geological Survey after the U.S. Forest Service has done their assessment. They run modeling on the area. And the areas that you see shaded on the Apple and the El Dorado fire, shaded in the red and the deep red, those are the areas, and those are the canyons, those are the drainages, those are the basins, those are the creeks that are most likely to have mud and debris flow and significance. So they have a very high likelihood of having debris flows and mudslides within those red shaded areas. And Jason went into some detail on the biggest threat in Riverside County. So here's a close-up view of what I was talking about. You can see the canyons, especially the Banning area, where those areas are susceptible. It's not a matter really of if they're going to get a debris flow. Sometimes we have burn scars where we don't know and we're uncertain, or there's a low probability. This is a matter of when. It's going to happen either this year or next year, sooner than later. When you look at the snow fire information from the United States Geological Survey, you can see the snow fire doesn't have zero threat, but it has much less of a threat, much less of a threat. The terrain is not as steep, the soil wasn't burned as bad, you're less likely to have a destructive, significant debris flow. But it's not a zero chance. You still will see mud and you still will see some debris coming down. The National Weather Service will collect all the information and we'll put it on one page like here where the right officials can monitor it in real time and share the information. All the way to when the debris flow already happens to days before it even rains. So for you, what I want you to remember is the watch and the warning. So several days before any winter storm comes, we'll send out messages that something significant's coming. It looks like we might get this amount of rain and this amount of rainfall rate. Rainfall rate is the key, like Jason talked about. It's so important. You'll have rain events that are light and they're 24 hours and they'll do very little. And then all of a sudden you'll have a period of rain with a storm moving through, even in the middle of winter, and it might only rain for an hour or two hard, and that's when it could let loose. That's when the mud and debris would likely be coming down. So beyond the outlook of, okay, it's going to rain in 5 to 6 days, it's important to tune into the weather every day when you hear that and follow it all the way up to when it rains. If we get into the mode of the watch, the flood watch, that's the mode where you need to not only be ready, but you need to even be ready to go or even go. So once you get to the watch mode within 1 to 2 days, that is high confidence that heavy rain is coming. Heavy rain, not just heavy rain, but heavy rain that could cause a debris flow or mudslide on the burn scar. So the watch is really critical. That's the time where you can act. Way before that, you need the plan. The watch is where you can actually start acting and putting that plan into action. The warning mode, that is the mode where your smartphone will go off. That is the mode where the emergency alert system on your TV, radio, will start scrolling across. That mode is absolutely critical that you've already taken action. If you wait until then and take action, you might find a lot of problems on the roadways. In addition to congestion, you may see washouts. You may see debris flows occurring at the time. It could be very dangerous. So the warning mode is the last message that something is coming. It rained too hard. You may only have about an hour of notice. So it's really important to understand the difference between the watch, because the watch gives you significant time to actually do something. Today, now is the time to take care of your yard and the drainages. The watch is, okay, heavy rain's coming. The warning is, it is here, and it's imminent, and it's likely flooding. So very important. I also want to know, looking at these areas in the San Bernardino Mountains and the foothills, these areas are notorious, as Jason gave a couple examples of flash flooding, debris flows, rock slides, even when there is not a burn scar. This particular event was in 2014. Massive rocks, boulders, floodwaters, everything came down the mountain. Basically about an inch of rain in an hour for 2 hours. So 2 inches of rain doesn't sound like a big number, right? 2 inches of rain, but it's a matter of how long it occurred, the duration, only in 2 hours. This is a situation here where I talk about turn around, don't drown. It's going to look like it's passable. It's going to look like it's not that bad, but it becomes very unpredictable at this point. The road might be washing out underneath. The culvert might be washing out. There may be many things going on that are not obvious at all, especially when visibility is poor or if it's raining at the time. It becomes very dangerous. Here's an example of another event up at Oak Glen where just too much rain fell on a non-burn scar. And the reason why I'm showing that is because the magnitude with the burn scar is often 2 to 3 times as much water, 2 to 3 times as much debris, mud, ash, and everything coming down. Here's the Holy Fire in Riverside County, and Jason briefly touched on this, and this is very likely the type of scenario you'll see. It'll vary in depth, it'll vary in size, it'll vary in the amount of logs and rocks and small ones, medium ones, mud and ash that come down. The Valley Fire up in the same general area was a very small fire in 2018. It was only a few hundred acre fire. Jason explained these two fires are 50,000 acres when you combine the two. The Valley Fire let loose and brought 10 to 12 feet of mud, debris, rocks, closing Highway 38. Luckily, no one was in its path directly. It would have been devastating. It was about 3/4 of an inch of rain in about an hour, and then the storm moved on. The fire was actually still burning at the time. This is what a warning will look like. So when you get the warning message, this means it's happening, it's imminent. It's not the time to go to Facebook or to go onto social media and figure out, is this real, is this not real? It'll be flashing on your cell phone. Flash flood warning through the wireless emergency alert system. And the warning message will be specific to the actual burn scar. And it may even give some information to go to Rivco Ready. It may give information about certain creeks that are more likely to have problems than others, certain drainages and road closures. One challenge we'll have, and my office out of San Diego covers San Bernardino and all of Riverside. So one challenge we will have is with communication, because the county line literally is sitting right on the fire. So our office in particular will be focused on communicating with San Bernardino and also with Riverside, and sometimes at the same time. This is what part of the El Dorado fire looks like. Huge mountain range. Yucaipa Ridge, completely moonscaped, completely burned down to the soil and beyond. The experts went up there and looked around, took sampling, took photography, and it is a burn area that about 50% of it is severely burned, with a high probability of debris flows and flooding. It's a very dangerous situation in this area. Now, towards the end here, I want to make sure, because some of you may not know what I'm talking about, a flash flood warning for debris flow, how would it appear on your phone? This is how it would appear on your phone. You don't have to subscribe to it. You don't subscribe to it. The phone comes ready, right out of the box. And once we send the message out, it's very much like an Amber Alert that you may be familiar with. You may be familiar with an Amber Alert. The flash flood warning is the same. And we triangulate it using the cell phone towers. So the actual wireless emergency alert on your cell phone should not be going to like Palm Springs or Victorville. It should be just going to that area if that's the area we're concerned about. Our message looks like this, a lot of text, but this is what you would see on our weather.gov webpage. This is what you'll see scrolling across your TV on the emergency alert system. Remember, the emergency alert system is completely different than the wireless emergency alert system, completely different. But the message on the wireless emergency alert system will be short and brief. The message on the emergency alert system on your TV screen or your radio will be a little longer and look like this. And it should specifically call out the fire. It should say Apple Fire. It likely will even say like the Banning Canyon. It might even say some of the roads on the area, depending on the exact location of the heavy rain. So a quick outlook here, because I know you're wondering, so what are we going to expect this winter type of thing? Right now we have a La Nina going on in the Pacific Ocean, in the equator area, way south of Hawaii. Why do we talk about that? I'll briefly explain why. Elsewhere in the Pacific, massive warm water, a reflection of our overall weather pattern, a reflection of many things, including excessive heat in California. La Nina is a weather pattern typically associated with the cold phase along the equatorial Pacific Ocean, way down near the equator. What La Nina does is it tends to bring us a shorter winter, a drier winter, but a variable winter. And what that means is you can go stretches in the winter where there's no rain for a couple weeks, middle of January, and then all of a sudden early February you get walloped with heavy rain from a big winter storm. So the challenges with La Nina are the variability, the long durations of no rain, and all of a sudden it rains too much. So it's almost all or nothing when it comes to La Nina. So the official outlook coming up for the winter, and then I'll have some takeaway message at the end of the summary slide, is drier conditions. But for you on the burn scar, what you need to know is that the return interval or the frequency of a rainfall that would cause problems on either one of the burn scars or the snow fire, on all three of those, the return interval is every year. So on average, every year, there's at least one or two events on average. So even this year with La Nina, you'll be hearing about, okay, it might be a little drier, it might be a warmer winter, but your message and your understanding needs to be that it is common and it is expected to have at least a couple storms this winter that'll really test us or exceed limits and cause mudslides and debris flows, even in this type of winter with La Nina. Here's the summary slides. I'll let you take a look at them. The bottom line is we've had an incredibly warm summer. We are not through the fire season by any means. So we might be talking about additional fires come a month or so now, additional burn scars, hopefully not. But with our current burn scars, with the El Dorado and the Apple, what we do know is high burn intensity, high potential for debris flows and mudslides in there. And on average, every year, we receive 1 to 2 storms that will likely exceed the rainfall rate thresholds on this burn scar. And that means you'll get many storms still that are smaller and less, but at least a couple that will exceed it on an average year, even this coming year. So keep that in mind and make sure you understand the difference between a watch, that's your long lead time, and the warning message. Because the warning message will likely be something that flashes on your phone, and you should have probably already acted or sheltered in place or taken action before that message. But it's the last reminder that something bad's happening because too much rain occurred. Thank you, everyone, and thanks for Riverside for having us here from the National Weather Service.
Good evening. My name is Todd Hopkins. I'm Division Chief with CAL FIRE, Riverside County Fire. I'm the Division Chief that oversees the Cherry Valley, Beaumont, Banning area, and Oak Glen. What I want you to know is we were there for the Apple Fire and we were there for the El Dorado Fire, and we're now preparing that our resources, we will be there if there is any type of flooding. We will be ready for those responses. We are going to be putting sandbags in different fire station locations, also sand with those locations. You can go to any Riverside County fire station and ask for sandbags. We will determine where we're going to end up having sand delivered to, and we will post that in our social media. Please don't wait until it's raining. It's too late if you are trying to do sandbags when the rain's already started. You should start preparing your homes for that right now. We need you to be, and that's part of being prepared. You're going to hear later in the presentations about the Ready, Set, Go. And you're going to hear about evacuation warnings, shelter in place, and evacuation orders. Please, when the slide appears later on in the presentation, please understand what the definitions of each one of those type of evacuations meanings are. So the difference that we're going to have here, although we'll be ready to respond, is we have modules of swiftwater rescue teams. Unfortunately, what we're going to be dealing with, as you've heard, is we're going to be having mud and debris flows, and there's a difference in the way we have to respond to a swiftwater event versus a mud and debris flow event. Swiftwater events, we can send our personnel into the water to effect rescues while the water is still moving. However, with the mud and debris, because of all the items that are coming down in the water, we essentially have to wait for the mud and debris to stop before we can then go in to effect rescues in most cases. So if you are being impacted at your home and you chose not to evacuate, there's a chance that you might have to wait until we can get in, until the mud stops flowing. Also, areas throughout the county and the city are going to have, as you heard earlier from Alex, are going to have water that's going to come over the top of the roads. Please do not cross with your vehicles. Do not try to walk across. The pavement will be weak in some areas and could give away, or your vehicle will just stop in the middle of it. That puts our rescuers in harm trying to go and get you out of the vehicle. And again, depending on what motor debris flows are going to be coming down, will depend on if we can get to you inside your vehicle. So please don't cross